For folks in the audience, if you want to make a public comment under non-agenda items, you just bring a blue card up to me so that I know that you're waiting to be heard. If you want to be heard on a agenda item, same thing, and then you can read it. I have one card so far, but I just want to let everybody know if you're not used to our rules.
Madam Mayor, it is 6 o'clock and we are live.
Thank you very much. And good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 regular City Commission meeting. Welcome, everybody. We're going to open up with a roll call.
Mayor Betty Resch.
Here.
Vice Mayor Christopher McVoy.
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga.
Present.
Commissioner Kimberly Stokes.
Here.
Commissioner Reynaldo Diaz.
Here.
Thank you. And the Pledge of Allegiance is going to be led by me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Vice Mayor McVoy is going to lead us in a spiritual moment. Moment of silence, whatever you want to do.
And I would just like to encourage us all to keep our eyes open as we watch what is happening in our country and in the world. Be thoughtful, be careful about watching trends, and be vigilant of what it takes to keep democracy active and to protect that, what we talk about in the Pledge of Allegiance, liberty and justice for all. It takes active vigilance from all of us. Let's be a part of it. Thank you.
Amen. Madam Clerk, do we have any additions, deletions, or reordering?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Unfinished business B, the discussion on solicitation for L&M Street property development has been deleted and will be heard at a future meeting.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
That's all that's on the agenda pretty much.
We're aiming for 7 o'clock tonight, just so everyone knows. So do I have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
Motion.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Presentations. First up, we have a presentation of the certified municipal clerk. Presentation of certified municipal clerk designation to our own Shayla Ellis, Deputy City Clerk by Renee Basil, who's the Palm Beach County Municipal Clerk Association President. Thank you. Come on up. What's our Shayla?
Mayor Resch.
It's a button on top and you gotta move.
There we go. Yeah, I got it. Mayor Resch, Vice Mayor McVoy, members of the commission, town staff, and attendees, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Renee Basil, and I'm the Florida Association of City Clerks Southeast District Director. I also serve as president of the Palm Beach County Municipal Clerks Association, and I'm currently the town clerk for the town of Gulfstream. It is with great pleasure that I appear here this evening to congratulate your city on the most recent accomplishment of your Deputy City Clerk, Shayla Ellis, upon receiving her certified municipal clerk designation. The International Institute of Municipal Clerks and its partner, the Florida Association of City Clerks, are professional associations that promote continuing education and certification through university and college-based institutes. IIMC's primary goal is to actively promote the continuing education and professional development of municipal clerks through extensive education programs, certification, publications, networking across the globe, annual conferences, and research. FACC's primary goal is to actively promote the continuing education and professional development of municipal clerks in the state of Florida by partnering with the Florida League of Cities and the Florida Institute of Government to meet the ever-changing educational needs of city and town clerks and deputy clerks, and to improve their knowledge in areas such as public administration, law, management, elections, and many other disciplines. Currently, only 32% or 4,528 of the 14,000 members of the International Institute of Municipal Clerks have attained the certified municipal clerk designation. And of the 630 members of the Florida Association of City Clerks, only 34% or 217 members have reached the certified municipal clerk association. To achieve this municipal clerk designation. Shayla has gone through and completed the International Institute of Municipal Clerks approved program conducted by John Scott Daly Florida Institute of Government at Florida State University in Tallahassee. This program provides 120 student instructor contact hours of in-depth courses in managerial and leadership skills. I can't even say it. Leadership skills, social and interpersonal concerns, and technical training needed to deal with changes taking place in government today. The program aids municipal clerks in improving job performance and recognizes the professionalism of the municipal clerk's office. Completion of a recognized career development academy or a baccalaureate degree in public administration or related field, responsible experience in local government, and participation in conferences, meetings, and educational seminars are required to earn the prestigious certified municipal clerk designation. This is only the first step. A true professional never wants to rest on their success, but instead keeps reaching higher, as Melissa is doing. The Master Municipal Clerk Academy was established to further professional education of city clerks and to meet the challenges of the office. Academy members must demonstrate they have actively engaged in educational and professional participation that keeps them current with the changing events in the local government scene. Academy members seeking to earn the Master Municipal Clerk designation are required to attain 168 hours in advanced education with 80% coursework in public administration and 20% in electives. This is quite a task considering the daily demands of the clerk's office, but I have no doubt Shayla is up to the task. Your deputy clerk is now part of an elite group of professionals in local government, a group she could not have become part of without your commitment to support her efforts. On behalf of the Florida Association of City Clerks President, Board of Directors, and its member, the Florida Association of City Clerks Professional Education Committee, and the Southeast Director, we are all so very proud of you. Please join me in congratulating your Deputy City Clerk, Shayla Ellis, and the City of Lake Worth Beach on her impressive accomplishment as one of our newest certified municipal clerks. Well done. Shayla, display this certificate and wear your pin with pride on Pride Day as a symbol of your dedication and professionalism. We're so proud of you. Thank you. Y'all mind if we can get a picture for the Florida
Of
Association?
course, I left my phone downstairs, but
Do you have a phone?
I just want to say I'm the city clerk for those who don't know you. And I have been very fortunate when I hired Shayla in October of 2021. She's been an exemplary addition to our office. She's so knowledgeable. She's great to have around. I'm really proud of her. And I love working with her every day,
Fun. She.
because I'm not. No, that's true.
It's a fun clerk's office. And people don't understand how important and vital the role of the clerk is. They think you just take minutes at meetings. You keep us in line, you update the ordinances, lots of stuff, all the election stuff. So thank you very, all of your office. Thank you so much.
I tried to talk really fast because I know you're going to get out by 7.
We beat out by 7.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Get everybody in.
Yeah,
Morning.
yeah.
Now. All right, thanks. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going back to my spot.
exciting. So it's good to hear good news about people doing this. Now we have a couple proclamations. And for those of you that may or may know it, March is Women's History Month. And the theme of this year's Women's History Month is telling your story, bringing out your story. So we're encouraging people to do that. Whereas every year, the month of March is designated as Women's History Month by presidential proclamation to honor women's contributions in American history. And whereas throughout history, extraordinary women have made significant contributions to the growth and strength of our state and nation in countless ways. And whereas through leadership, innovation, and ingenuity, generations of women have made significant contributions in science, medicine, technology, business, entrepreneurship, and arts and culture. And whereas today, more women are their family's primary income earner than ever before. Women comprise half of our nation's workers, and they are increasingly among the most skilled. And whereas the 2023 Women's History Month theme is celebrating women who tell our stories, honoring women in every community who have devoted their lives and talents to producing art and news, pursuing truth and reflecting society decade after decade. And whereas the growing impact of women in our workforce has bolstered our economy and strengthened our families. And whereas women of every background were early leaders in the forefront of major movements for social change. And whereas women have been leaders in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, and the abolitionist movement, emancipation, industrial labor, civil rights, and peace movements, creating a more fair and just society for all. And whereas, despite their contributions, the role of women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in literature, education, and culture, and business. And whereas, this month, we celebrate countless pioneering women and their victories, and we continue our work to build a society where our daughters have the same possibilities as our sons. Now, therefore, I, Betty Resch, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth Beach, by virtue of the authority vested in me on behalf of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as Women's History Month, and I signed it. This is a different one. Whereas the City of Lake Worth Beach takes special notice and acknowledges exceptional organizations that help residents who live, work, and play within the jurisdiction. And whereas in 2010, Digital Vibes, thank you, was founded to reach, you should read this one, was founded to reach out to underserved youth in Palm Beach County by empowering them through dance, fitness, technology, and the arts. And whereas Digital Vibes partners with the Palm Beach Health Foundation annually to host the Let's Move Commit to Change Physical Activity Challenge, a county-wide initiative that focuses on physical activity, nutrition, and healthy behaviors. And whereas Digital Vibes Inc. and Palm Health Foundation present the annual challenge, which takes place from March 1st to 31st, and encourages individuals within and beyond Palm Beach County to take charge of their health. Why am I reading this one? Take charge of their health by participating in fun fitness exercises. And whereas the Let's Move initiative was originally introduced on a national level by First Lady Michelle Obama in 2010, with the goal of decreasing childhood obesity in the United States due to the fact that nearly 1 in 3 children in the United States are overweight or obese. And if this problem persists, 1/3 of all children born in 20,000 or later will suffer from diabetes at some point in their lives, or will face other obesity-related health problems such as heart disease, high blood pressure, asthma, cancer, and I will add poor self-image. Whereas Digital Vibes and the Palm Health Foundation invite all residents to take challenge to the MOVE, capital MOVE, by forming teams, registering online, committing to exercising for at least 30 minutes a day throughout the month of March, and logging their minutes on the Let's Move website, www.letsmovepbc.org. In 2012, Palm Beach County logged 100,000 minutes in the first year of the challenge, and we've met the challenge each year, rising in 2021 to over 59 million minutes logged. Now, therefore, I, Betty Resch, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, by virtue of the authority vested in me and on behalf of the Commission, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as Let's Move Palm Beach County Month, and urge all citizens to join us in moving to improve their fitness, mental health, and overall health. And I sign. Thank you.
And just for the record, Wellington always wins, so we are striving for Lake Worth Beach to come in a close second or third this year.
Have we signed up for it?
Yes, the Zoo Gym is a subgroup underneath Healthier Lakewood Beach.
Sure, like we would join your group.
Yes, it's Healthier Lakewood Beach, then Zoo Gym, and then you log your hours every 10 days. I didn't know any movement, so walking to your car, any movement counts. Biking, everything counts, any movement.
I believe Leisure
Physical-
Services signed up as a subgroup too.
Uh-oh.
You just want to come close.
So thank you. And last, but certainly not least, this is March 2023 is Gay Pride, Palm Beach Pride Month. And we read the proclamation. We had a lovely gathering outside in front of the building before. It should be on Channel 5 later. And whereas the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community is comprised of people from all walks of life who are active participants in our community. And whereas members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community are engaged in endeavors of economic growth, retail, education, hospitality, community, professional, and service industries. And whereas the city of Lake Worth Beach has a proud history of striving for equal opportunity for all of its residents and employees. And in 2007, the city entered into a groundbreaking public-private partnership with Compass, the LGBTQ Community Center of the Palm Beaches, right up the road, to provide social support and health and wellness services and a state-of-the-art community center for all residents by renovating a city-owned surplus building. And they did it brilliantly and run it brilliantly for me. And whereas people seeking to limit any rights of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community are in conflict with the city's policies and anti-discrimination ordinances. Now, therefore, I, Betty Resch, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth Beach, by virtue of the authority vested in me and on behalf of the commission, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as Palm Beach Pride Month. And I have signed it. And thank you. Palm Beach Pride Weekend is coming up. We have one of the largest gay pride weekends in the country, I think. We have an expert here, Ms. Julie Seaver, who's the head of Compass, and her friends. And we'd like to give this proclamation. And Julie and her staff. Yeah, those, yes, you got fun, but you have to decide what team you're on. And I will say, you know, Compass has been such a force in our community for so long. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor. And I'd like to also welcome the City of Lake Worth Beach's new LGBTQ liaison for programs and services in the city, Rudy Galindo, who also happens to be one of our longtime Compass mentors and volunteers at the center. And we have our friends, executive leadership from Transpire Help and Transpire Help and Inspire Recovery. I got to get those two right. And we also have Nicholas Coppola, a Compass's board chair, sitting there in the back taking pictures. And we just want to take this opportunity once again to thank you and not only for including all residents and welcoming all residents to the city of Lake Worth Beach, but your supportive services for all of our programs, for all of the kids and adults living here in the city of Lake Worth Beach and beyond. So you can join us at Palm Beach Pride at Bryant Park for Saturday, March 25th and Sunday, March 26th. The parade steps off in downtown Lake Worth on Lucerne Avenue, and then it goes around on J Street, steps off at exactly 11 a.m. I see Captain Bear sitting over there, and we have strict orders to start marching at 11 a.m., not drag time, but 11 a.m. exactly. And we're hoping that the entire city commission will join us on stage on Sunday, the 27th. We're thinking that everybody's going to get into the park around 1 p.m. so that you can welcome all of the out-of-towners and out-of-state folks that are coming to visit this great city.
Thank you.
So
It's a great
thank
time.
you.
It's a great time. Thank you. Thank you for everything that Compass does. Okay, now we have commission liaison reports and comments. Let's start with just reporting.
Yeah, that's me. I'll keep it short because I'm kind of like losing my voice, but Yeah, I mean, today was a good day. Ending it at the Steps City Hall was really good. That was a really good turnout and it's a solid reminder of kind of what was at stake. It was a bit of a eventful weekend for me. I had, I was at a wedding and then, but the incident at Lake Worth Middle School, luckily nobody got hurt, but it was a reminder of how much is at stake in Florida and some of the things that we're dealing with. And then, to end it on a positive note, I took some of our Lagoonies out fishing today at Snook Islands, and it was a super nice because it was a really nice day. Obviously, Snook Islands is a really great place. Lake Worth, we have Bryant Park, such a great public amenity that we make available for so many people, and the kids always have a blast there. And they are the future, and we want to make sure that we continue to do the work that we do to make sure that they have a future. To I think you put it best on the steps there, so that everyone, Mayor, I think you said something like, so everyone can live as they choose to be
And have fun.
and have fun and not stress and worry over violence and all the other things.
It's hard. Thank you, Commissioner Stokes.
I do not have anything prepared to talk about today, but I am finalizing my preparations to go to Tallahassee next week. So looking forward to that. I still need to book the train. I have a flight out of Fort Lauderdale. I still got to get down to Fort Lauderdale, figure out what I'm doing while up there. So
Right.
yeah. So I just have to finalize all that stuff and all the visits and all those fun things. So looking forward to that.
Okay. Vice Mayor McVoy.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to thank my fellow colleagues commissioned here for their support last week, a week ago. It was really some groundbreaking legislation that we managed to get approved to set some goals also relating to the future of the next generation for clean energy for our city and some specific approaches for that. I've continued to follow up with that with the city manager and with at the national level with folks from the Department of Energy, folks from the National Renewable Energy Lab. And we're both the city manager and I are very excited that there is very strong support to help us in our journey towards cleaner energy. And we have very willing expertise available to do that. Other than that, was happy on Friday to join the employees picnic to throw baseballs up under the potentially new lights. To all core teams. I tried not to embarrass the commission too much, only through underhand once, was corrected, and was happy to join a radio station in the morning and talk about some of the things the city is doing and confuse my brain with French and Spanish all mixed together. But thank you.
Commissioner Malega.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. CRA update, as we know, the CRA will be moving their meetings to City Hall effective next Tuesday. So look forward to that. They'll be streamlined on YouTube, hopefully save some of their budget from having to pay for their IT department. So it'll be next Tuesday, 6 o'clock here at City Hall will now be the new CRA meetings. NAPC had their meeting on Saturday. Unfortunately, they have had to cancel evenings on the Avenue. The kickoff was supposed to be this week because there just wasn't enough time with Street Painting Festival and logistics. So they're looking at a date in July that we don't have anything planned on a Friday.
Okay.
In regards to what happened at Lakewood Middle, I was actually on my ride along with the fire chief the day that happened. And she and I were sitting across the street from the middle school when the call came in. And the call literally came in and shots fired multiple times. And it was very scary. We rolled into the scene. She was very calm. PVSO was already there. Motor brigade, and I'm talking within a minute and a half. 14 to 15 cop cars, SWAT team, helicopter was up, K9 units was already there. And I mean, we were literally across the street from Wayne Acres Fort. And when she pulled in, she said, "Where's command?" They told her, she went to the command truck, got out, told me, "Stand there, and hear shots, you get back in the car." Aye, Captain. I listened to her. And I sat back and I watched PVSO and the fire department and the school police work hand in hand in unison. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it was very emotional to be there on the scene, not knowing what was happening. I had called the city manager to let her know I was there. She said, I figured because I saw where you were. I just need to reflect on the fact that the teamwork, there was no, this is your job, this is my job, you stay over there. It was seamless. They worked fast and effective for our children and for the families that were up in arms. What's going on with my kids? So I called Erica Whitfield, school board member, afterwards and told her how impressed I was. I reached out to as many people as I could to say, this is what teamwork looks like. This is a high tense situation when there was no whose job is what, whose delegation is bigger, who's got more stripes and bars on their arms. And it made me reflect on our city. And I just need to express something. For nearly 2 years, 4 of us on this dais have been serving together. I say serving together, not working together intentionally. When we make statements from a podium or the dais, we are a direct reflection of the body, the elected body of the city, meaning one's remarks are a reflection on all of us. When we are elected to lead this city and staff in the direction that best fits the residents and the business owners' desires as a whole, the majority. We were not elected to criticize, belittle, demean, debate, chastise, or embarrass each other. Staff were third parties. We were, however, elected to conduct city business and vote on city business at the time of our city commission meetings. It's no fault at all of staffs that an elected does not have enough time to review information to make a sound decision on meeting nights. We are given our agendas with plenty of time to review, ask questions, ask even more questions, and investigate. If we, as an elected, are unhappy with those responses or lack of responses, then we should address them with the city manager in private or in our one-on-ones if we choose to make the time to have one-on-ones. Perhaps some of the commission, we need better time management tools. Perhaps some of us do not prioritize our obligations to the city. It is insulting, to say the least, the banter that has happened at nearly every utility meeting between one commissioner and staff. My heart hurts for our staff, that they may feel underappreciated and underutilized. I will not stand by for the remainder of my first term and witness such despicable behavior. Instead, I encourage us all to remember that we're a team. We are here to work together while respectfully disagreeing, respectfully. We're to give clear direction to staff, not send them on wild work projects. Let's just be respectful of others' times. Residents do not come to our meetings for any other reason than to be informed of their city governance. I'm asking us all to be being kind with words and actions will go a lot further than the behaviors aforementioned. Let's all strive to do better and be better as PVSO, the fire department, and the school police do.
Thank you. I don't have much. Last week, I had the opportunity once again to read I read to a kindergarten and like a 3rd grade class at Belvedere Elementary, one of the Dr. Seuss books. And if you have time on your hands, go and read kids at schools. They are adorable. You're a superstar. It's the most really, they're like, oh, you're so special. Belvedere was in West Palm Beach, but a Lake Worth teacher is a Lake Worth resident is a teacher there, so it was okay. And I wondered if we didn't do that in Lake Worth. I had not heard about that. No one asked me in Lake Worth. It's Read Across America. It's every March. And I was hoping, I hope next year we can participate because it's just the most wonderful thing. The employees, once or twice a year, we have a picnic, a lunch for the employees. And I went around when I was there last Friday. And I tried to go around to speak as many people as I could, many of our staff as I could, to tell them that, you know, it's nice, it's wonderful that we're having this lunch for you. But every day, we appreciate the unseen work that you do to keep the wheels rolling in this town. People do not understand. I really didn't understand until I was in this seat about the amount of work that people have to do. And I hesitate, like I'll get a question from a citizen about what's going on with my permit. And I hate to even bother them because, well, you know, we can call up and like, hey, fix this problem, or, you know, explain this problem. And it's like, okay, we have nothing else to do. So I try to limit that, but all in all, our staff works as hard as they can. Not perfect. None of us are. So it's great just to be able to say thank you in person. We are all getting ready. I think 4 of us are going up to Tallahassee. Sarah and I fly up on Sunday to spend a few days with our legislature and to talk to them about the needs of the city and asking them for suggestions and just in general, how can we work together as a team? And bring things to our city. And there's a lot of movement in the legislature this year. They keep trying to take away power from municipalities and absorbing it. And that's happening more and more. And that's one of the most important things that we have to talk about when we get up there, which is we're looking for money for mobility. We're looking for some guidance. We're looking for some power in our short-term rentals, things like that. We got to be able to have, we know what our community needs and we should be able to rule accordingly. Golfing, I'm a member of the Downtown Jewel Neighborhood Association, the finest neighborhood association. That's a joke. We love ourselves, but we're not very organized. Every year we have a fundraiser called the Flolfing, and it's Florida golfing in our yards, 9 yards in our neighborhood. It starts out at Lilo's on Sunday. I think Sunday I think it is. No, the 18th, it's the 18th. Sorry. And what it is, it's like a little miniature golf course and 9 people use their yards for a hole. So you have a route and we have people with golf carts to take you around and there's liquid refreshments of the adult and minor time and snacks at all the different houses. And there's a party at the end, again at Lilo's, it ends at Lilo's. And it's a very fun, we give a green jacket for the winner. And it's really a lot of fun. It's our only fundraiser. Our houses in downtown Jewel are quite small, so we don't really have the room to have house tours. But we're proud of our backyards. And also there's coming up, I think it's Parrot Cove is having a house tour soon. I'll also point that out. It's on Facebook. And they have larger houses, I guess, so they can have house tours. So I just want to that's about it. I just want to thank our staff for the work that you do from the top to the bottom, to the top, to all the different levels. There's no bottom. Everybody works hard. Thank you. Okay, now, city manager's report. Do you have a report, ma'am?
I have a few things. It just gets a little cool when that air conditioner comes on. It's really hot. I'm prepared today. Just a few things, Madam Mayor. One, it also enjoyed the employee barbecue. It was wonderful hanging out with the staff and the teams. Yes, you're so right. They work very hard, and so it's always good to be in one room to see them all because it's hard to get around to everyone at one time. So always enjoy that. Also, wanted to say that I attended a workshop or a training Saturday invited by Captain Bear and PBSO called Why Did You Stop Me?
Oh,
And so it was an interesting training. The purpose of the training is to connect community and law enforcement and communicate and understand each other's perspective of why we do what we do and understand what we do. From the law enforcement perspective, as well as the community. So it was very interesting. We did have some representation from Lake Worth Beach, other than myself. Carmel from Healthier Lake Worth Beach was there, Pastor Cato, Patrick Livingston, and I think that was it. So it was probably about a group of 30 people. 30 people. So
Sheriff's
nice.
Office put it on?
Yes, yes. This was by PBSO. And so some of the topics discussed, just to give you a few, it talks about they shared information from the perspective of law enforcement of why they do what they do, such as searching or pat downs and understanding their perspective, but also putting in information of how officers are trained, why they're trained that way. And then also from the perspective of the community, why the community feels certain ways and how to bridge that gap of understanding perspective and also perception and bridging that gap on how we see each other and view each other and how that human factor come in and how we need to look at each other from a human factor as opposed to our biases, as well as our just unspoken issues sometimes. And so just opening communication, it was very enlightening. It was very enlightening. So we'll see where we go from there, Captain Bear, and how we move forward and see how we bring that to the community if they'll be helpful. So.
And we now have some body cameras in Lake Worth Beach.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So we're excited about that. We've been asking for that for a long time, from my understanding. So finally made that happen. So just want to share that. That's all I have for today.
Thank you. 6:35. Public participation of non-agenda items and consent agenda. We don't have a consent agenda tonight. But public participation, I have one part from Peggy. Oh, I have two parts. Okay. Peggy Fisher, Miss Peggy Fisher. Where they come? They're holding us. Okay, this is which one? We're not doing it. Yeah. Did you still want to talk about something?
No.
No, okay, good. Here, take your card back. This is this is not, Todd, this is non-agenda items. Oh. Well, I don't really understand. Public regular, okay, yeah, okay. Miss Fisher, you're on.
Peggy Fisher, 508 North A Street. First of all, thank you, Commissioner Malega, for your very thoughtful and accurate words tonight. I think all that needed to be said, and I appreciate you saying it. My comment is about public comments request, public records request. I submitted one to the city on February 3rd. I asked for the last ethics training for the 5 people who serve as our elected officials. To date, according to the person who is trying to collect that information, 3 of the 5 of you have responded to her. Unfortunately, Vice Mayor McBoy and Commissioner Stokes have not responded. Public records requests submitted to the city are supposed to be responded to. You have an obligation. You have an obligation to have ethics training once a year. I believe it's required for statute, but you could ask your city attorney for sure. And so there's no reason for a month plus later, this information to not have been provided to a staff member to be able to respond to me. And I ask you to please take your obligations as city officials and your requirements to abide by state statutes seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee Simons? You want to speak?
Hello, everyone.
Name and address.
Yes, of course, that's coming. I wanted to say hello first.
Okay.
So on a positive note, I'm Lee. I'm at 202, 200 block of South Federal.
Lee Simons?
Yes.
Okay.
There's so many good things about Lake Worth Beach. Social items, the folks here that I meet, the just all around community. It's a general small Florida town, which I can really appreciate. And so if you've ever had a chance to talk to me for more than 5 minutes, the conversation will default to usually rocks or rivers or something in that manner. And since we're here and I grew up, I'm pretty much a Florida boy, but there's something really special about Lake Worth Beach, and it's the location, the way we kind of jut out into the sea and it's into the Gulf Stream, and it's a fascinating thing. So I'm putting together just a little 5 to 7 minute little it's a graphic presentation type, and you could take it in person, or you could just have the information and look at the presentation on your own. But it's just a little hydrological and graphical representation of why actually Lake Worth Beach, our beaches are so clean and pristine as compared to a lot of Florida beaches right now in this time of the year. So I just think that with all that's going on and all the cool stuff that goes on in Lake Worth Beach, that you folks should, have a good idea of what this is all about. And so I just wanted to reach out, and I'll probably send you all an email, and I'll get it together as my procrastination permits, and I'll send that to you. So just look for that. All righty. Appreciate you. And thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Cool.
You might want to talk to Mr. Diaz. He's our water guy. He's our,
Fairly well. He's a hydrogeologist.
well, see, so. still
So,
learning.
yeah, he's had almost all the lectures, so.
Thank you very much. Todd, Velez?
I found some evidence. Todd Velez, 530 North G. I look on 24 and 34 and see if you see some milk carton kids. 24 and 34. Midnight Sun, I saw you there. That was extensive and it was very different.
Thank you.
Searching ends when sharing starts. So that's one that could apply to neighborhood associations, courts, church and school and education, and of course, the Midnight Sun. OSL will, April 1st, we'll be having in the morning an Easter egg and trackless train and animals, and please keep abreast of that. I believe she's in our neighborhood.
Where?
At the church property in the green space. And first 150 people get a nice ice shaving. Some historical figures in their 90s plus. Mary Ann Gill, Helen Moore Gilmore, which passed just some time ago. She didn't get to do the high school celebration for the centennial. And Marlene Woodward, original music that's linked to Lake Worth, classical music. And Edie Kiefer Rayburn just passed away, and she worked at Barton Elementary, and her family's part of the Lake Worth development and the bicycle shop here in town, her husband. And Barton Road, I did not know. Well, I knew that Barton was linked to the mayor, linked to First Presby, and also the Holly School was out of Presby, out of Lake Worth, and they lived in that region. And she worked at that school, which actually came from the Barton Baptist Church across the street, which I did not know. Then the county took over. These people have passed. Mary Helen Gilmore was, of course, with the training kids to swim at her home because she couldn't do it at the city hall or the city pool, which they since have changed those laws, of course. And Mary Ann Gill, I remember she spoke. She was 95. She spoke of at Calvary and as well as the other ladies. Her involvement with the phone company that used to be where I guess that big AT&T, I think it was Southern Bell. And I remember asking her, what's Rick Bradshaw got to do with this church? This is back in 10, 11. Oh, that family, as they say. We were trying to find out why we had the people that were on the property, which were informants. Roberto Rodriguez Lobo was the head kingpin, did his 9 months to finish his 3 years of prison off at the church, and other people. We never really got a straight answer on that, but anywho, you guys can joke over that. I'd like to leave it on a joke. Is Mr. Whipperman, Mr. Whipple, excuse me, a Karen? That's a joke.
Mr. Whipple.
Mr. Whipple, a Karen.
The Karen. Karen.
It's a joke.
Oh.
You should know that, Mr.
I
Don't
remember
squeeze.
Mr. Whipple. I certainly remember Mr. Whipple.
So that's the
Please don't
joke.
squeeze the charm.
There we go. Thank you.
What are the pages here?
24 and 30.
Oh, look at you. Oh my God, you're so cute. 24. Yes, this is from Our Savior. We went to Our Savior.
Yeah, so I was in third grade. Was that grade 3?
This is grade 3, Miss Fuji.
Grade 3. And then Diaz says you were,
Seriously.
I'm not much older than you. We didn't know we were there at the same time.
Where is he? Where is he?
Top row.
Oh my gosh. You were such cute little children.
Yeah. Life.
Thank you.
Stressed.
And last but not least, Mr. Kevin. Oh, sorry? Yes, now you're up. Kevin Jones. We could bring, let's get him some help with the mic. Yeah. Name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Kevis Jones, and my address is 2500 Springdale Boulevard and Lake Worth. I do a lot of speaking engagements for Governor Ron DeSantis. And I did speaking in well, about the people that lived in Lake Worth Park. I did a speaking engagement there, and I did a wonderful job with them. And right now they had a rebuilding a they turned the Palm Beach Stockade into a homeless shelter for the homeless people. And so I do a lot of speaking engagement for our governor. So I'm here today to I want to address about the trolley when it's gonna up and running again. So we could have that trolley going through Lake Worth. So I'm trying to put in my requests to have that up and running again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we all agree with you. We're
Yes.
looking for funding. That's our little problem.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yes.
Slolly the trolley. I remember when she used to go to Publix. And
Yes.
they had a cooler in the back, so if you bought cold stuff, you could keep it cold. So we agree with you completely. We're just looking for the money.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming down.
Yes. Yeah, it's called the art. Yes, I do a lot of things for the. Nice meeting. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion? Oh, do you have any, I'm sorry. Do you have any public comments?
I don't, I would have piped up.
I thought so, but not being the shy clerk. So approval of minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and then one item in unfinished business. Oh, let's vote. Let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
It's the final thing. Okay, so now, next. Discussion of proposal receiving response for request for proposals for housing emergency study and rent control ordinance analysis. Yeah.
Good evening, Valentina Centeta, Assistant Finance Director for Purchasing. So City Commission recognized the existing housing crisis and declared the housing crisis state of emergency on its August meeting on August 16, and also approved the issuance of the request for proposal. We issued the request for proposal and we have received only one proposal in response to the request. That is from Florida Atlantic University. And you have all had a chance to review the proposal. And today we have here Dr. Levin and his team, and they're going to do the presentation for you.
Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome. Thanks.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. So I'm Phil Lewin. Am I speaking in this sufficiently? Okay. And I'm here with my colleagues, John Lee and Carter Koppelman from FAU. And we want to present to you our proposal to complete your housing emergency study and rent control ordinance analysis. So thank you. So I'll just start with a little bit of context. I think you guys are obviously well aware that we face this acute problem of housing unaffordability, right? So the county periodically studies this issue, and what they see consistently over the past 20 years when they issue their assessments is that housing costs over time are getting more and more unaffordable, right? And that becomes clearest if we look at their most recent report. So the 2020 assessment that they did showed that if you look at the results of that study, it showed that only about 13%. Oh, sorry, give me just a second. I haven't spoken in front of anybody for a while. So anyways, if you look at the most recent assessment that the county did, what we see is only about 13% of residents can afford a median value home. And what the researchers who did that report also found is that we're facing a shortage of about 78,000 affordable and workforce housing units. And I think what becomes even more alarming is that we're losing an additional 17,000 units every single year to either conversion or appreciation. And if you project those trends out over time, the situation becomes very clear, the scope of the issue that we're facing, right? So in 10 years, even if you account for the effects of the county's housing bond, that leaves us with a housing shortage of over 200,000 affordable units if we don't take action on this particular issue. The county's 2021 assessment also kind of looked at Lake Worth Beach, right? And the results of that study were very alarming. So Lake Worth Beach has a higher proportion of renter households than most of the other municipalities in Palm Beach County. And what the study found is we have about 60% renter households, and nearly about 2/3 of them are cost burden, meaning that they're spending more than 30% of their income toward housing costs every single month, which is unsustainable. All of the preliminary evidence suggests that that's having a very distressing impact on local families, right? So the Census Bureau does a study periodically called the Household Pulse Survey. And what that finds is that nearly half of households in South Florida believe that they are somewhat or very likely to face eviction or foreclosure within the next 2 months, right? So a very, very distressing situation. So what we're proposing to do, whoops, I meant to hit that earlier. So what we are proposing to do is do a study that would give a comprehensive report on local housing conditions. And what that study would do is characterize the extent, nature, and causes of housing distress across the city, right? What we would also do is determine the impacts that these rising housing costs over the past couple of years, which are arguably unprecedented, have had on individual households as well as on community stability, right? So what kind of impacts have they had on the economy, on local businesses, on the schools, and other critical social institutions? We would also identify policies that would improve housing access, affordability, and equity. With regard to the rent control sort of aspect of your RFP, we would also determine whether if rent control stands in the future, right, which might get overthrown by the Live Local Act, as you kind of alluded to earlier in your speech. But nonetheless, we could assess whether you have legal authority to issue a rent control ordinance analysis and examine what kind of impact it might make on local housing conditions. And kind of the overall goal of our study would be provide you with a comprehensive report that kind of details local housing needs and local housing conditions so that you can effectively plan for the future and develop policies that would make the housing situation more improved for our residents. So as you saw in our housing proposal, we kind of oriented the proposal around 6 major research questions. We'll kind of walk you through the basics of each one. The first one, right, did pertain to rent control before the Live Local Act was sort of, put out in the legislature. The kind of challenge with rent control, as you know, is, state law prohibits municipalities from implementing it unless exceptional conditions are met. And those exceptional conditions are, you need to show that there is a grave housing emergency that poses a serious menace to the general public. And of course, the challenge is neither you nor the other local governments know how to interpret the meaning of those phrases. The state does not provide any guidance on what those phrases mean. So what we would do is kind of comb through the housing research to interpret the meaning of those phrases. We would also look at other local governments who have passed emergency resolutions to kind of get a sense of what their conditions have been before they declared emergencies. And using that data and those results, we would develop a kind of definitive procedure that you could use now and in the future to determine whether housing emergency is present that justifies price controls. And that way you don't have to kind of guess if a housing emergency is present. You kind of definitively know through an objectively defined method. Second question we would look at that kind of follows from the first is there a grave housing emergency in the city of Lake Worth Beach, right? And if so, how severe is it? Is it a mild emergency or are we facing a catastrophic situation? And some of the data we would collect to answer those questions I've listed here. So we would look at things like housing costs relative to historical norms. If we take the housing cost increases over the past few years, How do those compare to normal expectations? How do they compare to historical norms? We would look at the relationship, kind of how how the housing market conditions map onto the economic means of our residents. Can residents afford what is being offered out there in the marketplace? We would also look at things like the incidence of cost burden, right? How many people are paying more than 30% and sometimes more than 50% of their earnings to housing costs? We would look at how often eviction is happening, how many families are falling behind on their rents or mortgage payments because they can't afford them. We would look at kind of both how the housing agencies are doing, both in government and the nonprofit sector, to determine how well they're able to address the demand and the need that they're seeing. We would also look at housing quality, right? How many families in Lake Worth are living in dangerous or substandard housing that threatens their health, their well-being, and that undermines their dignity, right? The third question we would look at kind of is more qualitative in nature. So we would look at the effects that rising housing costs have had on the health, safety, and general welfare of residents and on the community at large. And we would try to determine if those effects rise to the level of a serious menace, right? So what kind of effects have these rising housing costs had on the economic vitality of individual households? Are people having to make sacrifices? Are they having to trade, sacrifice on their groceries, on their education, on childcare, on clothing, because their housing costs have increased so much? We would look at the incidence of things like malaise, distress, and those sorts of factors. We would also look at the effects on neighborhoods. Have high housing costs undermine the kind of solidity, the stability, and the character of individual neighborhoods because residents who have lived in them for a long time can no longer afford to live in them and they're being forced out of the area. We would look at the effects on local institutions. So for example, are local businesses facing a difficult time recruiting workers because housing costs are so high? Are the schools facing difficulty recruiting qualified teachers because housing costs are high? Are students suffering in terms of their academic performance because they're living in housing insecurity, which is impairing their ability to concentrate? We would look at negative housing outcomes. So how many people are living in overcrowded conditions? Have we seen an uptick in the number of people who are experiencing homelessness due to these housing changes? And finally, we would give you a sense of how common abusive landlord practices are, right? Are there families that are getting subjected to extortion, illegal eviction, and other kind of unethical behaviors by the people who own the properties that they're living in? Moving on from there, what we would do is we would look at the underlying causes of housing unaffordability and distress in Lake Worth Beach. This is important because in order to formulate effective responses to this situation, we have to know what the primary causes of the problem are. And we would kind of search out and analyze really the full gamut of factors that might be contributing to this situation. Those include everything from population growth to real estate speculation by private equity firms and real estate investment trusts. You all have been debating, obviously, the short-term rental question. We would look at the role that has played and give you guidance on that issue. We would look at things like, the LDRs. We would look at county level housing and economic policy to see how that's factoring into this. We would look at, obviously, the collapse of the insurance market and people paying $5,000, $6,000, sometimes $7,000 to insure their property and what effect that is having on housing prices. So we kind of give you a full sense of what is causing these problems so you know what you need to target to make them better. Drawing from that, the fifth question we would look at is basically what can you do in order to improve this situation, to make housing more accessible, affordable, and equitable for the residents living in the city. And our goal here would be to give you kind of a full menu of different policy options that you could explore and choose from. And what we would do is basically provide our recommendations. And those recommendations would be based on the anticipated impacts of these policies, the timelines they would require to provide relief, and also kind of their viability, right? Because, resource scarcity is clearly an issue in all local governments. What would kind of be the biggest bang for your buck? And what is it actually possible for you all to do? We would also kind of provide you with some recommendations for resources that you could draw from to address your housing needs. And one thing we would definitely want to explore is how you can avail yourself of the $200 million housing bond that was recently passed, right? That's going to be a big source of funding. And we would try to help you position yourselves to take advantage of that if possible. And finally, we give you some concrete guidance on the rent control question, right? And kind of the answer here would be, would you, if you decided to pursue this, and if that remains kind of an option, is that something you would be legally justified in doing, right? And rather than speculating, we would give you a definitive answer that would be supported with robust data. And that way, if you proceeded with it, you would have the evidence that you need to kind of show that is a necessity. We would also give you implementation options, right? So if you're going to pass rent stabilization, at what level should it be stabilized? What properties should it be sort of applied to, right? In order to maximize the benefit and minimize any externalities associated with it, right? So the timeline, this is a fairly involved study that is complex and requires a lot of data. We have proposed to complete the study by next January. However, what I want to emphasize is that I know that you have pressing needs and issues, so we want to make this study as useful to you as possible. So we're more than happy to modify that timeline if it makes sense for you. And one option might be to kind of phase the delivery of the results. So if there are certain questions or issues that you would like more immediate guidance on, we would be happy to prioritize that research first and maybe deliver you results every few months before providing you with our final comprehensive report, which would contain an interpretation of Florida statute, a comprehensive overview of local housing conditions and housing needs for future planning, and policy recommendations for making the housing situation better than it currently is. Finally, is the budget for this. We anticipate this would cost about $57,000. The main resource that would be required to do this is basically time. So we've budgeted for 5 costs. One would be a course release for the principal investigator, who is me. So basically, this wouldn't be compensation to me. It would be compensation to FAU to hire somebody to teach 2 courses I normally teach, so I could kind of do this research for the city instead. We'd hire a couple research assistants to take part in this. And then there'd be some transcription costs, some public records costs. FAU requires that we budget for these indirect institutional costs. And that's what that last figure there is. So
Flyer discount.
you may be able to.
2 studies get 1 half or something.
Yeah, you're eligible for one now, right? Because you have the redistricting study. Yeah. I will broach this with them because they might very well have like a punch card that you can use. So yeah, I'll look into that. So I'll go ahead and stop there because I imagine you have questions.
I'm just gonna start out, and I am probably the most skeptical about this, because I can tell you why people are suffering. They don't get paid enough. You know, I mean, so, and I'm just a very basic person, so. When we were talking about doing this, Commissioner Diaz made a point, there was the one point that I thought was pretty code, is that with the, we got some money from Lois Franklin, we're matching this funds from ARPA. And sometimes if there's a project, then, if you have a study, here we have the information, and it would make us more eligible for different grants and things. The $200 million bond, I'm hearing from the county commission, they're pretty much earmarking that to be revolving loans to developers. I mean, I was very surprised to hear that that's, I'm hoping that we could give direct aid to people, not ever things. So my question is how, okay, you talk about, finding out definitively from the city, our residents, are you going to knocking on every door? I mean, how do you do this?
Sure. So it would be a mix, right? So we would draw from quantitative data, which would give us estimates about like.
What would the data be?
So data would be things like we would analyze the market listings, right? And tell you how much properties are going for. Obviously, that would be the easy part. There's a lot of census data and American Community Service data. That's a survey that the Census Bureau does that contains a lot of detailed information about housing conditions. And we would use that to give you an economic profile that we could use to kind of see what people are capable of paying on average in the city. A lot of the data would come from speaking to people, though, and we would speak to basically as many stakeholders in the city as possible. We would talk to tenants, we talk to landlords, we talk to builders, we talk to all of the different agencies that provide housing services, realtors. We talk to people on your talk to you all, we would talk to the CRA, code enforcement, like kind of, we would talk to as many people as possible to build this comprehensive portrait of a situation of what kind of housing issues people are facing in the community. And I think that's where most of the value from the study would come from.
And I have, you know, as you know, the whole rent control thing has been highly stamped out. Okay, it's not in favor. And it has to be done yearly. We have to have a yearly referendum and do this every year. So to me, that's daunting, you know, and from what we read the Orlando opinion, which is like, it's, you know, the general over, it's not just like one area of the town, it's got to be the whole town. And I just doubt that we're going to be able to do that. I'm being conservative about this because I'm thinking, you know, I mean, I think that's very similar to, if you're going to do as much work and knock on doors and walk around our neighborhoods, $57,000 is not crazy amount of money. That's not one. But I guess I'm just skeptical about doing a study with things that we all kind of know about. So, what practical application, I guess, you know, and I understand you're from university and you're academic and studies are wonderful. But, you know, practically speaking to us, how can this help us?
Sure. Well, I think we'll give you a sense of what can be done to address people's housing needs, right? So just as one example, I know that you all had a recent special workshop on the short-term vacation rentals, right?
That's one of the things that I think could be.
Yeah, so I've looked at the figures for that. And as you know, like at any given time, there's between 500 and 1,000 short-term vacation rentals. And you're currently considering whether to enforce the 60-day ban on them, right? So what we kind of need to know is what impact that would have, right? So kind of the hope is to increase affordability, that those would convert into long-term rentals or that they would go on the market and open up more real estate so people could purchase them. We don't really know exactly what will happen. We can provide you with an answer to that to determine if that is an effective idea, right? And we can do that with kind of other policies too. We can give you information about what people in the city can afford, which is important if we're trying to preserve and produce affordable housing. One thing I know the commission has also addressed is drafting a tenant's bill of rights. And if that were to happen, which I think would be a very effective protection for tenants, we have to know what kind of rights to codify and what to protect. And then there's other things too. So we'll look at housing quality. We'll also look, like I said, at abusive or exploitative landlord practices. And we can bring to light people who are in situations that are abusive so that you can intervene on their behalf. So I think rent control it's one aspect of the study. The Live Local Act that's in the legislature may or may not pass, right? And you do have to repeat this study every single year. But one benefit of this, I think, is that you would have the procedure that you need to determine this in the future from our research, if that stands. And even if it does not, you know, I think that there's a lot of other measures that can be taken to try to improve housing affordability here. And that would be the goal.
I guess my concern
Right.
is the theoretical, looking at statistics from the census and different things.
Sure.
And actually knocking on doors and talking to our people. That's, to me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
We have a huge population of underserved people. And I mean, it's interesting to do academic work and get a study, but what I'm looking for, and I hope you know, share, what do our people need? Okay, so it's not so general, but it's very specific to us.
Yeah, and I completely understand the concern. And our orientation to this is not going to be academic at all. I mean, I view this as a very practical study to determine what housing needs are and how they can be improved, right? The goal won't be to answer a theoretic question. It will be to craft policy that will help people.
We have some questions. I think Mr. Diaz was first.
Yeah, you actually answered a lot of it through the mayor's questions, like the practicality of surveying people and interviewing, because you know that can be challenging. I really appreciate your response here, because going through it, and I was kind of impressed at including, for example, you know, it's something that I know I had asked for previously, like the effect on crime, which is not exactly something that you typically see in a housing study, because it's a difficult thing to, I mean, you know, but to put it bluntly, you're gonna have to go out there and you're gonna have to knock on these doors and, crime areas is a challenging task and you seem really committed to pursuing that, which is really admirable, I think. And I think the mayor kind of alluded to it. The rent control is, I think, a great goal if we could achieve it. It's certainly super daunting. It's challenging. But I think in your presentation, you alluded to the fact that there's this legal question that has yet to be answered. And what is a serious menace? Tallahassee hasn't defined that. The courts haven't defined it, right? I don't think, not yet.
Great emergency.
Yeah, the great emergency. And it seems like you're almost willing to take on the task of using Lake Worth as an example of what does that criteria look like, whether or not Lake Worth meets it or not. Let's get some criteria down, and it would be kind of beneficial. And I think, looking at this kind of information that we would have, not only would be super beneficial and helpful with our own staff and through planning and our, working on our LDRs and whatnot, but I think it really kind of shows our legislators and the funders that be in our federal government that, if we go for this information and we really are not content with just the county study and we want to know what our residents, the door to door, I think that is going to speak volumes for when we pursue more of these, especially federal dollars. I'm with you on the county housing, but I think there's a lot of good in this, and it's a very thorough for a preliminary response. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that would be, I think this could be an example for determining what those phrases in the law mean. And, two things that I think would make this a little bit distinctive is the county studies are very helpful in a lot of ways. There's a lot of useful data. One thing they don't have is talking to people about their experiences with housing, right? That study is based entirely on kind of census data and surveys, not going into speaking with people about what kind of challenges that they're facing. And I do think, rent control, the state has sent a challenging bar, but I don't think it's one problem with the Orlando study is the study that was done was funded by people who had a vested interest in having rent control basically undermined, right? And the study that they used said, don't do this essentially, and they proceeded with the referendum anyway. So I think that's kind of how that situation arose, I suppose, right?
Yeah. And you brought up, renters' rights, which is something that we discussed a lot here. And I'm kind of curious, are you able to just on its face discern, things like historic environmental racism, for example, or discrimination against, disability and ADA problems and things like that, not necessarily calling out, I know the city has had issues with where utility poles are located on sidewalks, that sort of thing. But, all those things kind of contribute to the livability of a community. So is that something that, when you look at, for example, question 3, health and safety, I look at that health and I'm looking at, it's not just physical health, it's also mental health. So can you kind of touch on that in terms of ADA and discrimination? Is that something that's in the radar?
Certainly. I mean, I think, like I said, our goal would be to produce information that would be as helpful to you as possible. So if that's something that would be helpful to include in the study, we'd be more than, because I think that's a huge issue and a very important one, would be more than happy to look into that. And yeah, I do think that kind of malaise and psychological distress is one of the big outcomes of the kind of housing situation that we're facing. I remember several people during the emergency resolution meeting. I'm a resident of Lake Worth Beach, but I remember that meeting back in August, several people up here coming and crying just because they were under so much stress and pressure from the burden of having to carry this mammoth housing costs, right? And we would want to catalog that to get a sense of how widespread that is.
We also have a lot of homeless students living in their cars and things like that. I think Commissioner, I don't know who's next. Who's next? Commissioner McVoy, Vice Mayor McVoy was next.
Thank you. was very impressed with the thoroughness of the response to the RFP and the level of detail. I might share with the mayor the concern as to how high a bar is the state law for the rent control. So if I were making a suggestion, I might say maybe back off slightly on the focus of trying to get over that hurdle. That said, I think that much of the information of trying to identify what is it, regardless of whether we ever are able or want to pursue rent control under that pathway, I think a lot of the information would be helpful. I particularly like the idea of, and I'll call it a hybrid approach, where you say, all right, let's look at the statistical level stuff that's available and see if we can translate that into a more human thing by talking with individual people, but informed. As you talk to people at the door, you have that picture in the back of your head of, all right, what does it look like? How does Lake Worth look statistically different from the rest of the county? One of the potential outcomes might be that, we often talk about in all these housing discussions of AMI, average medium income. And I think we frequently say, well, that's fine, but we live in a county where we have, and I think you had it in some of your footnotes, we have quite a concentration of multi-billionaires and millionaires. Does it make any sense to use AMI in that context? Can we lobby for just don't use that county number, anything for anything to do with our city? It doesn't make sense. So I really like the approach that you're taking. I see a lot of dedication of your group to really dig in and talk to people and with that statistical context. So I'm happy with what you're proposing. Certainly my experience with RFPs and consultant contracts and things is sure looks to me like a lot of bang for buck here. I do like your proposal that we might want to think about phasing of what information might be most useful soonest, what information might be helpful to come out a little later. You've already alluded to the short-term rental is a pretty active one. Accessory dwelling units hasn't yet come up, but I suspect we talked about the city manager would say, it's on the horizon. That may be a relevant part of things too. I think we'll come out, I feel quite confident that we'll come out with a much more detailed. And one of the videos, just sort of a comment, I think I've made it sometimes before. My sense is that if you live in Lake Worth and you've lived here quite a while, and you are fortunate enough to be able to own a home that you purchased quite a while back. Speaking for myself, I can say I feel a little insulated. I could get up in the morning and say, what housing prices? I've got no housing price. It seems to be okay for me. It's not that big a deal. And I think there are probably a fair number of people that were fortunate to buy either during the 2008, 2009 crisis when prices came way down, and it allowed a lot of people to come in. It was very bad for people that had foreclosure. It allowed another set of people to come in at pretty reasonable prices. And then there's a whole nother set of people, of which Friday night I talked to one, or my wife and I talked to one, brought them food from the employee benefit, of people who somebody ran into their trailer. They had to leave the trailer. They're looking around for housing. They're looking high and low. They've got people in the community looking for them, and they can't find any that they can afford. So there's sort of two worlds. My sense is that you will help us see that second world that perhaps some of us are insulated from and need to be full on aware, both statistically and at the human level. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Rich Malega.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well said, Vice Mayor. First of all, good presentation. And you're very well spoken, and you broke it down to layman terms that I could understand because I don't have a PhD. So with that, I say thank you. I would be excited if we could move the timeline up so that we could use this data to codify our STR regulations, because that is at the forefront right now. we are going for money for more funding for affordable houses. And the study will help us when we get to that. I agree. It's always good to have more data and people like to see that we put the time and money in. I live in part of the community where I'm gonna give you just, I'll be generous with this. Let's just call it 50% of the people in my community are renters. And I see landlords pull up every single month in their Maseratis and Mercedes Benz and they collect cash from multiple people in a house.
75%. Thank you.
So those aren't the people that you're gonna be able to go, excuse me, how many people live here? And how much do you pay in rent? Because my neighbors, they trust me. If I ask them, they might tell me, probably still not gonna be truthful. In fear, right? There's a fear factor. And that is what my concern is that the people that we really need to get the information from, there's a trust conversation that needs to be had. And I don't think that anyone who knocks on the door who looks like me or who doesn't speak the language or they don't feel comfortable with, and I say they being my neighbors, are going to give that information to. So I support this endeavor. I think I was very impressed by the dollar figure, to be honest with you, since we've seen some big numbers on studies. So that's my big concern is how are you really going to get that information from the people who are cash landlords where you're not going to be able to pull information. Half of them are way under the table to where they'll have it in their sister's aunt's mother's name, not even in an LLC, and they're collecting rent. And I would like to see us include here, this is something I've been working with legal on, is city issued for rent signs. How impactful do you think they would be? City issued for rent signs is something that I've been studying for a couple of years. And the LBTR number goes on there every single time they renew the license. That way code knows it's been inspected. Renters know that they're an upstanding landlord. There's no price gouging. There's no cash under the table. So I would like, I don't know if the rest of the commission would be interested in seeing if that is something you go work into the study, what you think that impact could be, coupled with that tenants bill of rights, right? If the city were to do this as part of our LBTR, could it help? But again, that timeline of January of next year, I was like, we're in the housing crisis now. Like that, how is that helping us? So if we could move the timeline up to at least even phase one of what the STRs and the ADUs could do to the housing market, I just think it would give us something to codify our next conversation.
And I think it would be a good way to introduce yourself into the community. And you're absolutely right. I mean, you're going to have to make relationships with the people that can get to those people. Okay, us knocking on doors. I'm for the government. I'm here to help. So, and I think the STRs that is facing us. So that might be a way for you to start. Just getting to know the different areas of the city, getting to know the players in the city without having to worry about that. And I see Ms. Stokes has her line on.
Well, Diaz had.
Dia, but you haven't spoken.
I haven't.
The rule is that you don't get to speak a second time if the other person hasn't
Okay.
spoken. Ms. Fisher, that was for you.
I just wanted to reiterate some of the things I heard up here too. I'm really excited about the possibility of phasing the delivery of the results so that can help us make decisions faster. I'm really excited about learning more about our dangerous housing conditions that we've had in our community for a long time, even before this housing crisis. So I'm glad that we're going to be able to look into that. I'm really interested in seeing the ability of our support agencies to handle all of the needs. Like that part is really exciting to me because I think, like you said, the county does like this kind of big picture of these numbers of how many people are with this median income and all of that. But to really see the impact that it's having on our support agencies and to continue to lobby to the county and to the state and to other people to maybe fund those a little more appropriately and having this reports to back us up. It's not just I'm in the community and I see this myself. We have a report, it's been documented, and we need better support systems in place. And I think it's really great to show how that contributes to our community stability, because a lot of times there's a misconception out there that we're not all in this together for some reason. We are. And when we have a certain segment of the population who is facing this kind of crisis, it does have an effect that rolls out and it impacts us all. So I'm really excited about those two aspects of the study. So thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, to Commissioner Maliga's point about the difficulty of getting data from certain segments of the population, I think that's crucial. And I know you already have probably some pretty good relationships with some, we're always lucky to point out how Lake Worth has these incredible nonprofits. And I know you already have relationships with some of them, GMC, Compass, Healthier Lake Worth Beach. I think all of these groups can be conduits to those people that you can interview.
Guatemalan Center.
Yeah, Guatemalan Mayan Center. And, I hadn't really thought about that, but Commissioner Stokes, that's a great point about, using that conduit and that information to point out, hey, these are the services that are not just a service. I mean, they're crucial. They're literally vital for this community survival. So it's all, yeah.
Okay, so, you're back. Mr. McBoy.
I would just like to propose that, and it's both a proposal to us and to the investigator team, is would it be reasonable for us to suggest, and I don't know what the right amount is, but $5,000 or something or other to fund interpreters to help with the question that you've raised. And I suspect in our community, we could find people who would not only be doing the technical interpreting, whether it's to a Mayan language or whether it's to Spanish, but also people who had the cultural fluency to build, to be able to get explain, hi, we're not the government, but to explain what we're doing. I would think that would be a wise investment on our part to add a little bit to the budget to fund some local people.
That would be a substantial help.
I agree. I don't disagree with you, but I also have had experiences I've worked with a lot of interpreters, and my experience at times is like the person who doesn't speak English talks, and the interpreter turns around and says, yes. So you have to be careful with the slant of the, if there's an agenda or the slant of the interpreter, so that would be something. Right.
I'm sorry, could you turn your mic on, Commissioner?
If we utilize people in the community, like Carmel,
That we know and
who
trust.
speaks 5 languages, people that we have a trust relationship with
Right.
in the community, that, we can partner with Healthy Lake Worth Beach on something like that, to say, we were trying to get more data, right? Like Patrick Livingston or, GMC. I mean, I think that's a great idea. I'd be in support of that.
So do I have a motion?
I'll move to direct city staff to enter into more detailed negotiations.
And what about $5,000?
Oh, and with the additional funds for translators.
Not to exceed 5,000.
I have no idea how much a translator costs.
They're not that-
I don't know.
If it would be helpful and say, I can try to create a budget for that within,
Yeah.
like, if you have certain parameters you want it kept within, I'd be happy to do that and submit it back to you if that would be helpful.
I think that could be part of the negotiations of the city manager,
Sure.
so when it comes back to us, we can do a final approval. So
Correct, and they
Okay.
will incorporate some of the discussion you
Right.
had about modifying the phase
Yeah.
approach to the
Timeline
project.
phase.
Yeah.
Second.
Thank you. I see our attorney has his light on.
Yes,
Hi there.
two items. One, don't forget the discount. The frequent flyer discount. When you come.
That's-
And secondly, the whole rent control issue might be moved because the legislature's got a bill, as you're aware, that would completely eliminate the ability of cities to enact rent control. So,
It's the least.
right, that's the smallest part. It's a part 2, but just wanted to put it out there that may be something that we never go down that path.
I have one card. We have a motion and second, but we have public, you have a card, come on up.
Several cards.
Oh, they come.
My bad.
Thank you. Whoops.
I'll point out, they might not have to go far for a translator because the FAU, when I studied anthropology there, the number of professors that know Mayan and Central American languages blew me away when I went there. So
Mr. Torres, the time for public participation of non-agenda items passed a while ago. I mean, I can ask the commission if they're willing to come back to you, but we're gonna hold up to that. Davis Jones, Mr. Jones, you back up. Do you want to bring the mic?
My issue, was, you're gonna, bring a trolley back?
Well, we're going to try, sir.
Okay, thank you very much
Okay, thank
for
you.
my first time, coming here.
Well, welcome. It's, the funny
Yes.
thing is this is local government. And local government, they say, oh, well, government is local, but this local government, we are the people that can hopefully bring around changes in the quality of our life, whether they're
Yes.
small changes or big changes. But I don't think there's anybody of this dais that doesn't think that we should have a trolley in Lake Worth.
Yes.
Okay, we just don't have any money right now, so we're
Okay.
trying to look for it. Just like, we all need things, we don't have the money, but totally agree with you. Thank you.
Yes, I also, I go to a program called the Art.
Yes,
It's,
great
yes.
program. And
right next to Palm Beach State College.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm a representative there.
All right, I appreciate that. That program has been around forever and it's a wonderful program. They have
Yes, it is.
workshops and work experiences and it's great.
Yes,
So we're glad that you're getting the opportunity to take advantage of those good things.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that you came tonight. Come on back.
Okay, I will, next week, Tuesday, right?
No, it's in 2 weeks, the 21st.
I will
Great.
be,
Okay, and if you do have access to the internet?
I live right now.
Oh, okay, so you're close. All right, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you, sir. Have a good evening, Mr. Jones. Anna Maria Windisch-Hunt. And I say that there's a German accent,
A little bit.
eine kleine bisschen.
Good evening. Anna Maria Windish Hunt, 404 South C Street, regarding housing and what this gentleman was talking about. I have thought about this a long time on how to fix the situation with this LLC and whatnot. And we have only about 35 people that are homesteaded in this community, Royal Point, Sienna. And I was going to be really generous and say, let's just send notifications out to all of these homes that you own half the alley. We have the worst alleys in town.
And this is not about the housing RFP.
Oh, I thought it was about what he just spoke about. And I thought, well,
Mr. Jane, you don't know, we're talking
Yes.
about the FAU thing.
but I have a solution for you.
Well, go ahead, shoot.
It is flush them out by immediately setting notifications that you have to clean up your alley. 6 months ago, I was here talking about the situation of the alleys. That mattress is still there. It's on the other side of the halfway house. I have pictures of rats.
Okay,
I mean, come on.
okay, but again, Anna,
We
with all
can
due
deal with
respect.
this
this
if we
is-
send out notifications and you have $100 fine now.
Okay,
And these people will respond. Then you know who they are.
thank you. Todd Townsend? And this is about the RFP specifically.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of loose cannons in this town. We have to keep it all.
That's the beauty of this place, isn't it?
That's
You don't really know
part of
what
the charm.
anybody's gonna do, you know? So Todd Townsend, 502 South J Street. I really love that these people want to do this kind of thing. I think it would be really helpful. But at the same time, I think that you're going to be stepping immediately knee deep into the swamp or to the Everglades. Because a lot of families right now are stacking up. They're hiding in people's houses because of the rent situation that we already have. And I think that somehow you'll be injecting yourself in between landlords and
You really need to talk to us.
okay, so I think that they would be injecting themselves in between landlords and tenants or renters, in that they might, let's face it, a lot of times tenants and landlords stop getting along after some time, and so that puts these people in a position where the landlord is saying this about the tenants and the tenants are saying this about the landlords. And it's like, they're going to have to want to go in and somehow decide if this living arrangement is good, if it's dirty, if it's moldy or whatever. It's like, we don't even have code that goes in and does that. And so for them to like be injected into that position, I think that there should be a lot of thought in that, because, you know, we're just asking them to come up and just start judging between landlords and tenants. It would be a sticky situation. I'm all for it, but you know, those details have to be looked at.
I'm sure we'll look at them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion. Oh, Madam Clerk, do you have any public input?
I do not, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So we have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. So go and figure this out, Madam City Manager. Fix it.
I can say, working with FAU, the representatives, we had a good meeting initially and
Oh, good.
they'll work it out. I
Okay,
feel
great.
good about it.
Now, I know we're all excited. Are we gonna, we gotta think of one more thing that it's like, if you get two, you get one free. So you have to think of another FAU study. Okay, I know we're all anxious for the next, City Attorney, do you have a report? Now, I did get one card from a Mr. Torres who came in late. It's public comment on a non-agenda item about speeding. Do we have consensus to let him have his? Yeah, okay, Mr. Torres, come on up. And then we're gonna get the motion we've all been waiting for.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. And Mayor Resch and everyone on the committee, thank you for the demolitions of the properties that were boarded up for over a decade. I am happy to see that in my community. There's been a lot of speeding. I've come here before and spoke from here all the way down from 2nd and H.
Name and address.
512 North H Street, Joseph Torres. The 3rd all the way down to 10th Avenue, North H Street is 2A. My concern is, why is G Street not the main drag for them to go through? Because one side of it, there's no houses on there. It's the tracks. But we have it set up where we have bopping and weaving constantly. Between 5th and 6th is really congested because it's more cars there. And it's constant speeding. We need speed bumps. I had to rally to get stop signs, where we finally got some on our street and lighting. Recently, I had, in response to the landlord tenant thing, I had a home next door to me. I'll give you the address later, but the neighbor remodeled the home interior, and I saw a wash and dry. I went and saw it beautifully done. And all of a sudden, 5 cars pulled up when the people moved in. It took a year for them to do whatever they did in there. And the guy put a fence up, because I've been rallying for a fence for a long time. I was happy that that was done. I have no problem with the work that they did, beautiful, but they put a washer and dryer in facing the wall, not outside, but facing a wall inside of the house. And then an AC unit is put in and another wall. So they've done a lot of internal changes where I'm sure they had no permits for. I'm going to be speaking to code about the supervisor about that, but I will forward you that address because it should be checked into. My concern is, what if a fire breaks out in there from that dryer? I spoke to the code guy in our department, in our community. He said, well, he doesn't see it. There were no shades there. And all of a sudden, 2 days before the people moved in, he put the shade up. But I have been seeing this washer looks just like mine, stackable. Additionally, we have a lot of bedding, furniture. This section has no code on top of anything around here, none. If you look at 4th and North G, there's an empty lot there, cars parked in it and so forth. And I've been there like that for years. I made a mention to the previous code person we had, and she's gone. So we're now stuck with no one that's really coming through and doing. I'm going around, and I have been since I've been here in 10 years. I constantly call, pick up the bedding, pick up the trash on my street. My street's not even being cleaned. You know, and now where am I going to park at with these five cars that just landed next door? It's a rental. And then in front of me, they have a, what's it?
Thank you, sir. That's time.
A new 2-story with 4 units. You know, 4 units there. Where are they going to park?
Is there off-street parking?
No.
Oh.
Thank you
very much. And I think the city manager is probably taking notes about this. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So, I think we have a motion in order. Second.
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.